Time to read.
Chapter 16, page 130. We're finally doing it, Matt told Tubbs when he arrived at the Misko's house on Friday after school. Tubbs eyed him nervously. You're going to run flute, Matt announced, and do it on your own. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Well, not today, but you both will be by the end of our lessons. I promised, didn't I? But I still haven't found you a third client, Tubbs pointed out. And is Alex coming back? I don't know. They both paused and looked sad. Well, can you use your mom and dad as clients? Mr. Moffat says no family members. That way it's a real business. Matt watched Tubbs sit on an upside-down bucket next to the barn door. Everything about him was big. His eyes were permanently round, as if trying to take in all the amazing things in life at once. His curiosity about the world was as big as a house, and his smile was even bigger. He had tried to help Matt get clients. It was time Matt helped him. Let's focus on flute now. At that news, Tubbs straightened and leaned forward. Here's the plan, Matt said. We're going to run a 3-dog team with Flute beside Bandit. Oh, I thought you were going to teach him obedience, to sit and stay and stuff like that, Tubbs said. He quickly added, but this sounds okay too. We're starting with this. Flute knows Bandit, so he can learn from him. Then, if that works, tomorrow you can run those 2 dogs to chase my team. 2 dogs are easier to run than 4. Plus, you don't have to share the runners if you're on your own. You'll be better balanced. And with those 2 young dogs, you'll go fast. The faster you go, the easier it is to steer. That doesn't sound right. I know. I haven't been the best teacher, but just trust me. So far, this had been Matt's sled dog school of having really bad experiences and then just trying not to repeat them. He finally understood Dad's favorite saying, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from poor judgment. It was time for good judgment. Matt wanted his school to show people how amazing the dogs were, and he wanted Tubbs to have fun outside, to not be afraid. This will be the mushing test, Matt said. Hook up and run 2 dogs on your own. Watch them smile and keep them safe, and you'll pass the lessons. After Matt prepared Foo and Lead and gave Tubbs a harness that would fit Flute, they went to get Tubbs' dog from the pen. Flute stuck his head through the paddling of the harness with no problem, but when Tubbs tried to pull Flute's legs through the webbing, the dog leaped up and bonked him in the chin. Flute tangled, tripped, and fell headfirst into the snow, pulling Tubbs with him. Matt took the harness from Tubbs. Easier to hold him between your knees. When Flute wasn't looking, Matt stood over the dog, held him firmly with his legs, and stiffed the harness over his head. This time, when the dog jumped, Matt was ready for it. He slid the harness under the lab's feet and pulled the tug line across the dog's back in one smooth motion. You make it look so easy, Tubbs said. When Flute felt the tug of the harness, he looked down at his chest, then back at Matt. He lowered his head and pulled Matt toward the sled, his tail wagging furiously. I think he wants to do this, Tubbs shouted. Matt brought Bandit to stand beside Flute and held his breath, but Bandit immediately recognized his buddy. They touched noses while Matt quickly hooked on the yearling. As soon as Tubbs and Matt left them to run back to the sled, the dogs jumped each other, Flute's front feet snagging into Bandit's harness. Foo stood in single lead, impatiently watching them over his shoulder. Matt pulled them apart and hauled Flute over the gangline and back onto his side. Foo stared down the trail and barked with excitement. The rest of the dogs in the yard voiced their frustration in high-pitched shrieks. Matt felt just as anxious to go as the screaming dogs. Their eagerness was contagious. You're going to have to hold them before we take off running, Matt said to Tubbs. I'll grab you on the way by. Tubbs stared at him, dubious. You're going to do what now? Don't worry, it's a thing. Done it lots of times. Matt called over his shoulder as he raced to the sled. Just keep the dogs from tying themselves into knots for a second. He pulled the snub line that attached them to the tree and popped the snow hook. Get ready, Matt yelled. Tubbs moved over as the dogs whipped past him. When Matt got close, Tubbs stretched out his arms with a look of absolute terror on his face. They both reached for each other at the same time. Tubbs clung to the handlebar and jumped onto a runner. He bent over the bar to find his balance, nearly falling, but Matt held him. When Tubbs straightened, his face shone. I did it! They both laughed, the cold wind hitting Matt's teeth. He felt as if he'd just gotten an A on a report card, which was weird. He jumped onto the runners all the time. It was no big deal. But suddenly, it was. He was proud of Tubbs. Helping him made Matt feel better than he had in a long time. Matt punched him in the arm. "You did it." "I am a musher," Tubbs yelled, and tried to dance. But Matt had to grab him to remind him he was sliding along a trail, balancing on a runner. They clung to the handlebar next to each other in silence for a while. It was as if they didn't have to say anything to know what the other meant. Matt had never had a friend like this. Matt watched Flute, who was the whole point to this quest, really. That crazy dog didn't seem to have any trouble fitting in. He charged down the trail, his long legs galloping awkwardly. The best mix in any dog team was to have experienced dogs for wisdom and young dogs for passion. Bandit was like the spark plug of the team, and now so was Flute. Flute looked over his shoulder at the boys a few times. "You're fine, Flute. Good dog. You're doing great." Flute faced forward again and pulled with all his heart. The dog had heart, and Bandit pulled beside him with unrestrained joy. They weren't matching their strides yet or anything, but they were both pulling like mad. The team skimmed along the trail, the trees whipped past, and Matt's smile was freezing on his face. That night, Matt sanded the sled dog he'd whittled while he tried to find in his math book how to get the cost per unit. He heard the phone ring. Matt talked with someone for a while before stomping towards Matt's room. Matt closed his book. As usual, his dad swung the door wide, nearly falling into the room. "That was Mrs. Stevens, Alexandria's mom." Matt tensed. "Is she letting Alex back?" "Seems so, but she's coming back on a condition." "What condition?" "Well, it's very strange. She's an unusual woman." If Dad was calling her unusual and strange, Matt couldn't even imagine what this condition was. "What? What does she want?" "Prepare yourself, son. Things are about to get weird around here." The end of chapter 16.